So before we wrap up, just want to ask you about, of course, the Premier League restart, the game against Aston Villa. We are pre-recording this, so I'm pretty sure Frank will do some sort of press conference. I've heard rumours about Zoom press conferences, but hopefully we get some sort of
Ooh.
inclination of what Frank's thinking before the game. Um, it's going to be strange, isn't it? Because
Mm.
we've had the experience of Bundesliga, which I've personally got quite used to, and sort of warned me on the idea of the Premier League restart. Just generally, what your opinions on the Premier League coming back, having no fans? Are you apathetic towards it? Are you positive about it? Optimistic? What's your sort of feeling about it?
Mentally, for me, it's football's coming back, fantastic, but I've not enjoyed the Bundesliga at all. Um, and I enjoy watching the Bundesliga normally, but I think for me, I'm more of a I I like the social mentalities of Bundesliga football. I like the 50 plus ones. I like the tifos. I like the fans. When Dortmund decided to put fan noise through their speakers, it just completely killed it for me. I watched 5 minutes of that game and I turned it off. I was like, not interested. Premier League, I'm looking forward to kind of coming back in the perspective that it is the Premier League, that my club plays in that division, that I want to see us push and do different things. But it just feels like a training match. Um, and from a human perspective, as much as I love football, as much as my work revolves around football, I don't think it is humanely correct to bring it back yet. And it just feels like, well, no, it doesn't just feel like it. It is just purely financial. Look at the WSL. Fantastic. Chelsea been crowned champions. Fantastic for some of you who just, quite frankly, excuse me French, don't give a shit about the WSL. That's fine. You don't care. I believe that women's football is moving up. I believe that it is increasing and getting better, and it shows. Factually, it shows that if they're just going to cancel, it's about right, they're champions, and then but we've got to bring the Premier League back. We've got to bring the Premier. Oh, financially, it's too much a burden. We've got to do it. We've got to do it. That just tells you everything you need to know. It tells you everything you need to know. And the fact with a lot of the TV stuff as well, where the finances come from, they're making it free to air. All they're doing is trying to get eyes on it, rather than actually looking at it and go, do you know what? Maybe it's not the right time to bring it back. Maybe we do need to look at other stuff and think and consider our options, which is what for me needs to happen. The UK still has a massive death rate. Um, and the reason other leagues are coming back is because their R rate and the death rates in those countries are not high. They've dropped off completely. But with those leagues as well, they're fulfilling it in a way which it's safe, and you know that players don't need to worry. The fact that you've still got players out there right now going, I do not want to go play football. I care about my family. You have clearly not saying managers, but people at clubs and the leagues going, no, that's your job. You have to do it. You're here to end. It's like, okay, so these guys' lives just purely rely around entertainment. It honestly feels like, when I think of that, you think of that, you think how bad that sounds, right? Gladiators with the thumb up, thumb down. That's kind of what almost a modern look at it could be for us, where you have these guys which are just going to play. And look, if it is fully safe and there are all these measures, then fine. But considering you've still got one or two cases of coronavirus coming out of the league, coming out in tests, then it's for me, it's not safe. It's not. And it feels like a purely financial move, where you've got people like ourselves and other fans going, brilliant, football's coming back. Brilliant. I can't wait. I'm really excited. Don't get me wrong. I'm gassed. I think it's going to be great that football's coming back. But I'm also sat there going, it just doesn't sit right. It just doesn't sit right with me. Um, and people can call me cynical and all that sort of stuff. But mentally, I'm just kind of sat there a bit like, do you know what? Like, it's just not going to be the same. I mean, if you go into Man City, it probably will be. But outside of that, it's it's one of those where it's like I'm not a fan of football without fans. I'm not a fan of it, and you know, you can sit in your living room cheering and all of that, but it's like it's not the same. It's not the same as limbs in a stadium. It's not the same as being there and singing with the random bloke next to you who you just hug when you score. It's not the same as being sat in your season ticket spot where everyone around you, where you can ask how their week's been, what they've been doing. It's not the same as going to the pub and engaging with people. And look, life is going to be very different, no doubt about that. But it football without fans is, I know it's a cliche, but it's a cliche because it's right. Football without fans isn't really football. We're about to see training matches and Liverpool, God forbid, lift a trophy in an empty stadium, social distancing, and we saw what happened in Austria when they did that. It looks weird. It's a massive, like, you fulfill the season. It's like, cool, all right, brilliant. Next.
I
And
think I agree with that, and I think it's I mean, I come at it from a slightly different angle. I think I was where you are now. I don't know, late. I'd say mid-April if I remember rightly.
mm,
And I think my issue always was that it felt like there was a lack of leadership from the FA, from the Premier League, the conflicting reports, the lack
yeah,
of sort of clarity about what was going on. And we felt like we were in limbo for a very long period of time. I understand it's difficult for the decision makers because this is such a unique situation.
mm,
And I don't want to sit here and go, I had the solution myself. I don't want to be one of those people. I think it was always going to be challenging, but I think the lack of information that was coming out regularly for me was very frustrating. And they'd have these meetings, and then Frank Lampard would come out and say, "We don't really know anymore," and that frustrated me because I think at least the players and the staff and the people who work in football should know about what's going on, and then it filters out to the rest of us, the community of people who help fund football, to understand what's going on. I disagree with you on the sense that the financial reasons, and I think I can understand some of that it's like, null and voiding some or cancelling some seasons but then restarting others. Football is an industry. It is. People
yeah,
make
yeah,
money off it. Their livelihoods do depend on it, and it's not. I think sometimes we just look at the highest wage earners, or those Premier League clubs. There's a lot of people who work for those clubs, and as we've seen throughout the football divisions, some of those clubs need football. They need revenue. Now, I think that's a wider discussion about how maybe Premier League clubs could maybe help out lower league clubs, and that's I think a different discussion for a different day. But I think that
yeah,
for me, I don't fully accept that. I think it's all because of greed. I think some of it has to do with the livelihoods and the longevity of these clubs, because the argument for me always is like, I think that sometimes football gets treated very differently to other industries. So we see like films now starting, sets reopening a bit now, and people going back and making films again. And a number of shops in the UK open on Monday. Or when I'm filming this, sorry, that gives it away when we're filming this, but shops in the UK do open again. And there's no one going into Primark is, it's inhuman. Now, I know that may seem like a straw man argument, and I'm probably being too simplistic there, but I just want
you're
to
not.
point out that I think that football, it's as much, of course, it's never going to be the same, right? And this season is always going to feel very weird. It always is. Hopefully, if this never happens again in our lifetimes, it will just be seen as an asterisk, right? It always will be. It will be an outlier in our football lives. But at the same time, I don't think it's always just motivated by greed, because I think there's a lot of people whose lives depend on football coming back.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I'm not dismissing your concerns. Of course, I have the same. Because when you see the death rate come out every day, it sinks your heart, because you think, like, it makes it depresses you every day. But I think there is also a lot of people who, as well, need work to live, and those people don't earn 100 grand a week. Those are people who work at Premier League clubs as well.
Of course, and that's the thing, and I get that. But with Premier League clubs, I think it's very different to the lower divisions. I think the lower, I know I said it's a conversation for another day, but I'll try and wrap it up in 30 seconds. The mentality behind that. it is an industry. You're right. Financially, you know, people have to live. It in itself, it is huge. But for the same token, Premier League clubs are in a much more financially viable, or should be. If they're not, they should be panicking. They're in a far more financially viable situation to deal with that. Obviously, you look at a lot of clubs have managed to be fine during this, still paying people full wages, even helping NHS staff, doing what they could to help and keep it safe. But purely from playing football with the R8, it's not right. It's not right. And I think, look, I'm not going to sit here and, you know, like you said, the people in charge is very difficult. It's an outlier. It's the same for the government. You know, me and you, you know, we do sit on very different fences in terms of that. But it's one of those where it's like it was always going to be difficult, but could have we could be looking at a very different situation if we hadn't sat on our hands as a country and just gone, do you know what? You'll only get it once. You'll be fine. And if people die, which is what people said in the cabinet. Uh, we could be looking at a very, very different situation. I'm looking at Italy. I'm looking at Spain. When you have two of the countries that were the epicenter of the crisis in Europe, I've got family in Italy who looked at the UK and they just laughed at us. They just sat there and went, "Oh, so we're doing this now." We knew that would happen because they don't. You don't see the effects that people have, and it's when you have, you know, on the streets in Italy and in other countries, it was, you know, why are you going out? What is going on? Whereas with us, you had, and you saw it, and it was people took the piss. You had police go up to people, go, "Excuse me, what are you going on? What are you doing?" "Oh, piss off, mate," whatever, all this stuff, and just, it just wasn't dealt with correctly, which is why we're in the position we're in, where there is going to be a second spike. There is going to be a second spike, and it's going to be all this restart, and everything is going to be completely redundant because it hasn't been handled correctly from the top to the bottom. Um, Again, just my opinion, but it's one of those where, you know, Premier League clubs, I think, you know, like we're saying, people's lives depend on it. But the conversation we had where this is an outlier, this is what a lot of companies need to be looking at. This is an outlier, and football and life is more than finances. It's far more than finances. And it's one of those where, you know, I know people are going to be disagreeing with me. I know it makes me sound like I'm putting a sour note on the return of the Premier League. Like I said, fantastic football's coming back. I can't wait to sit on the sofa with my dogs, with my cup of tea, and watch the football. I can't wait to do that. I can't wait to do it with my dad. Can't wait to do it with my brother. But, you know, it doesn't sit right with me. It feels strange, and I'm slightly worried that that's going to be what the Premier League feels like to me. I mean, look, like, as a man who runs a football club at grassroots, which has been hit massively, I understand how difficult it is for people to, you know, keep on top of stuff and move stuff forward in the lower divisions. I've been helping my dad trying to prepare my local club for a season, and I've seen how difficult it has been for people. But this is where, as a nation and as a society, you need to help those people. That's where, you know, when you know that other people can't step up when they should be, that's when you need to do it. That's why, you know, at first, fantastic, you know, the NHS clap 8 o'clock on a Thursday, you know, it was great. And, you know, it showed that there was an element of solidarity. But then obviously you had NHS workers coming and saying, well, that's great, but come help us. So then people actually went to help. People produced PPE in factories where it was safe, so they could do it to help the NHS and help other people. Yeah, I helped, you know, elderly relatives by going to get food. I helped, like I said, my football club. And this is me just saying, look at me, how great I am. But it's like, this is where football clubs, and again, call me a cynic, Premier League football clubs would not step up and help lower league. They won't do it because there's too much of a gap. They don't care. And I'd love to be proved wrong here, but I think but Bury is a prime example of that, of a club which was so integrated within to the community in Greater Manchester, which has produced fantastic players within Greater Manchester, which have gone on to play at higher levels, which have Bury as a historical club as well could help so much. People didn't help. Yeah, it's a different situation, but it just goes to show it for me. It just does. Lower league clubs are really going to struggle. The fact that it's not going to go away. You could have teams in the championship going bust. You could have teams in League One and League Two will disappear. Premier League, if they can step up, or the FA can step up, and as a society within football, people can help. This is the perfect time to do it, and it proves what people are really about. If it is really a survival of the fittest and people don't care and they just want to crack on with their lives, fine, be that person. I'm not that sort of person, never have been, even though it may have been painted that way sometimes. I I am someone who values the people around me, and I think as a person and as a part of society, I want to do my bit to help. If Premier League clubs can do the same, and it's almost where this time rather than restarting everyone supports each other and develops, and then from there comes back stronger and pushes in the new season. I feel that would have been a very beautiful thing in football. But obviously, that's just me, sputting out right now. Ins and outs, completely different scenario, completely different scenario. But you know, it's for me, it just all feels a bit. I think because we both, it's just all everything just feels very surreal. I'm just right. I'm right now. I'm just like I don't know anymore. I don't know.
I don't know the answer until that game on Sunday against Aston Villa kicks off, how I'm going to feel. Will the
Mm,
nerves that I usually get before every Chelsea game restart?
mm,
Will I be more interested in what the like empty Villa Park looks like, and then subsequently when we play Man City, an empty Stamford Bridge, an empty King Power Stadium, and on and on from there? Or will I feel emotionally invested? I feel I will be emotionally invested because it's Chelsea. Now,
yeah.
just because you're emotionally invested, that doesn't mean you don't, as you've stated, I think, you've made your point very well in terms of being principled about that. And I think, that's a respectable thing. You're not just going to, completely throw that out as like, oh, I've got Chelsea back. So screw all the stuff I've been doing for the past 12 weeks. And it doesn't matter about COVID anymore. I'm just going to focus on Chelsea. I think
Mm,
that's a respectable point of view. Unfortunately, we don't know until that first game comes around how we're going to feel
exactly.
about it. And it could go either
Exactly.
way. And to be honest, if the situation gets worse with the virus, we may be back in lockdown again. So we just don't know at the moment. Just before we wrap up, just want to ask you specifically about the game against Villa.
Hmm.
It's basically the start of a new season, isn't it? Because of the
Yeah.
gap between the when we ended against Everton in March to now when we're playing Aston Villa. Very different situation. Just your sort of feelings about the game, because of course Villa fighting to survive in the Premier League. They gave us a difficult game in December.
Hmm.
Chelsea, of course, the last time we played, we were brilliant against Everton, but I think it'd be very hard to predict that the momentum will continue. I
Mm.
find it very interesting about some of the some of the players coming back from injury who could feature here. The likes of Christian Pulisic, the likes of Loftus-Cheek, Hudson-Odoi's fit. Basically, Frank Lampard has a full squad to pick from, which is really a rare thing this season. So, just your sort of general impressions and feelings about this game.
If it's going to be like the beginning of the seasons, or beginning of the season, then I'm quite confident, quietly confident. I think based on how, like we were talking about earlier, Tammy Abraham, where players can come in and just kick it off and go for it, then I think we could do a decent job. Whether or not that'll actually happen is a very different scenario. And like you said, it's a new season, and because of everything that's going on, home advantage, away advantage, it just completely disappears. And it just comes down to who's the best team on the day. On paper, Chelsea have the better team. On paper, Chelsea should win that game. But we'll have to see. I think with a fully fit squad, we should take the game to them and be able to, you know, go for it.
Mm. What do you think in terms of who do you think are going to be like key players for Chelsea for the remainder of this Premier League season? Who do you think are players maybe that you wouldn't expect maybe to be
Mm.
key players that are going to be some players that didn't perform maybe as well before the lockdown but have got a chance now?
think that centre back partnership we were talking about would be key. You know, Zuma and Tamori. I think that'd be a big one. Reece James, just basically the defence. If they can finally click, then we could be seeing some different stuff and could be performing much better. I think midfield, Mateo Kovacic, if he can continue the form despite it being a new season, I think that he could be someone who could be massive for Chelsea. And then obviously, you know, to be honest, I think a player which could be big, and I think will prove his point because he is a fantastic professional and he's a very good player and he's proven to be good for us this season when he's been called upon. I think Olivier Giroud. I think Olivier Giroud could be a big asset for Chelsea with the season where, you know, we've basically not had a pre-season, but we have had a pre-season. But we've not had a pre-season. And you're going to have players like Giroud who are going to have to, you know, hold it down. He's basically being touted to be, you know, off because of Timo Werner coming in. I don't think that's the case. I think he can be a different option, but this is where he'll come in to prove it. I think playing again for the position against the likes of Tammy Abraham could be absolutely massive. I think we've already mentioned Christian Pulisic. The fact he's come back from injury could be huge, but I think he's coming back from injury, so I don't want to put the pressure. But I think a player which can make a massive difference for Chelsea, and we have missed because of his directness, is Ruben Loftus-Cheek. If he can come into this side and boss it like he used to, which is very difficult from an Achilles injury, then oh my God, what a player we've got. But at 25, he's not the young generation anymore. He is in danger with injuries and other stuff of potentially becoming another Jesse Lingard. And this is where he needs to step up and prove he's not that, because he is a player who, and you know, mate, I've known you for years. I've known you since Cheeky Rubes. I've known you since we were doing, you know, FIFA career modes together and all of that sort of stuff with Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I know you got a soft spot for him, but I agree based on what, and we're sorry last season when you'd have that, you know, 5-yard passes, left, right, and the ball would get to him, he'd be like, I'm not doing that. Go. And then he'd pull the team forward. I think that directness could be huge. And because he pulls, people saw images from the training game against Reading. He had 3 or 4 players trying to stop him. If you have someone who can pull those players away to allow space for other players and all that sort of stuff, then we could see something very different. Him and Mateo Kovacic, you know, playing together, potentially Jorginho or Kante in the holding midfield role a bit more. You're looking at a very strong squad with some additions that are still to come in the new season. Hakim's his season's technically over with Ajax, isn't it? So, and he's technically a Chelsea player as of now, right?
July the 1st is when he arrives.
Okay, so could he play for us, or is it one of those?
I don't think so. I think there's probably rules. I don't. Everything I've heard is no. He'll have to wait till the next season. That's what, unless something changes. But I agree with you. I think I think Ruben absolutely. My worry with Ruben is and also a bit like when HUDSON-ODOI came back in September, people expecting too much too soon. I mean, if you've got to remember, we've got a short period of games here. There are not a lot of games for players to come back. It's going to be quite an intense short period that goes from Sunday to, early August maybe, if we get to the FA Cup final, which of course we could. He's not going to have a load of games, but I think the 5 sub rule, I think, is absolutely a godsend for Frank Lampard, because I think for Ruben especially, even if it's 10 minutes on Sunday against Aston Villa, he comes on and gets a run out, I think it'd be brilliant. It could be more than that. Yeah. He could be further along in his development, but in terms of getting back to fitness. But I agree with you. I think if Ruben gets back to his best, Chelsea's midfield is transformed. I don't think I can overhype the impact he had in Sarri's midfield last season when we got that spell, because I think if anyone has a go at me and goes, you know, what can Ruben do, I can just show you a run of games where our midfield went from looking really passive to looking energetic. The movement was brilliant. Jorginho suddenly was finding the right passes. Yeah, I think it all came because of Ruben. So I agree with you, but we just have to be patient. I think we have to be patient with a lot of the players 100%. Coming back from injury. But one more question: do you think Chelsea will reach Champions League qualification?
I don't think it's a question of hoping. I think we should be. And not in the way, I'm not saying like we deserve to be there. I'm just saying based on the season we've had, it has had its ups and downs. We've been consistently within that top four bracket. We need to get Champions League football. If you're signing Hakim Ziyech and you're signing Timo Werner, they're going to be in. If Europa League is not an option. It's not an option. Whether even the Champions League takes place is a complete other dynamic as well. I mean,
because we're still in the Champions League, if you remember, we're still hanging on.
Mate, I was gutted. I got my bet refunded. I had us to beat Bayern at the Allianz and go through to the next stage. But Bet365 let me down. It's fine, it just happens. But outside of that, it's I don't know. Look, I think as a club we should be aiming for Champions League football. When I say aiming, it should be a case of right, Frank. I get he's massively overachieved. I'm not going to say Frank Lampard hasn't. I always thought we'd finish mid-table this season, but he's done a fantastic job, and he needs to make that difference now. And we have the players that can make the difference, but we just need to now have that final push. We are in the driving seat. We just need to stay in the driving seat.
We need to be consistent. We need to win two. We haven't won back-to-back Premier League games since November, and that's Chelsea want to get Champions League football. They have to do that. That's the annoyance of the lockdown. It looked like we may be finally getting back into some sort of form, but maybe it's refresh the squad, refresh some legs, and we can get going again, and hopefully get those points that we need.
That's it.
To get Champions League football. But thank you so much, Louis, for coming on the channel. A great discussion. I hope you guys enjoyed watching the discussion. As I said, split into two parts, speaking about the football for Sunday, and of course the first part. If you haven't seen it already, please go and check it out. I'll leave the link in the description box below. But Louis, before we go, just want to give you the opportunity to shout out where people can find your work online.
Okay, so well, hopefully by this time this has been uploaded, I'll have a few videos out. So if you want to head across to my channel, Louis Beneventi, I'm down there. Obviously, make sure you follow the Chelsea Echo, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube coming soon. But to find out a bit more about the Chelsea Echo and when that's coming, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. It's just my name on Instagram, and then an underscore between my first name and my last name on Twitter. But yeah, that's where you can find me. And obviously, as the greatest managers of Grace YouTube football, make sure you follow Imperial Wolf as well. But that's where you can find me. And subscribe to Dan. He's over there on my screen. Subscribe to Dan. Dan, he's calling me a YouTube OG. He was doing it before I was. So, make sure you subscribe to Dan and follow his fantastic content. All absolutely amazing. Always has been fantastic pro. And, long may he reign supreme on the Son of Chelsea channel.
Thank you, man. Very kind. And yeah, all the links will be in the description box below, so you can go and check them out, support Louis' work. But thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea. Have a great day, and I'll see you again.